friends, it's Bella and welcome to my little corner of YouTube world where we talk about everything beauty and beyond. And today it's beyond. I'm in my kitchen and I wanted to share with you, as I said in a couple of videos really, the sort of food that we would have had when I was a child. Now, I come from, as you know, many of you know, because I talk a bit with pride often, I come from the East End of London, which is very, very different to it was when I was a child. So this year I will be 67. Say that quickly. This year I will be 67. So I was born 10 years after the end of the Second World War. So it was past rationing had finished. But still things weren't available like they are now. Money was very tight, particularly in the area that I lived in. Money was very tight. There wasn't the knowledge of food that there is now. So now we know, majority of us have got knowledge about nutrients and vitamins and so forth. Back then it was feed your children, you know, fill their bellies as much as you can with what little you've got. So a lot of it was very straightforward, sometimes very bland, sometimes really, really tasty. Sometimes, as I said, it's not always thought of as what's the best vitamin intake, minerals, so forth, like we consider now when we cook. It wasn't like that then. And the biscuits I want to make for you today are really old and very famous from where I come from. They're called Whitechapel biscuits. Now, Whitechapel is an area that a lot of people know. Even in other countries they've heard of Whitechapel because it's where Jack the Ripper was, long before my time, I'd like to add. But it's the area where Jack the Ripper was, so a lot of people have heard of Whitechapel. But it was, when I was a child, it was a little drive from where I lived. Not far, 10-15 minute drive from where I lived. And it was a poor area, very much a working class area. But a hard working area. People fought and, you know, it was very much mum stayed at home a lot of the time. Dad went out to work. Mum stayed at home, made the house. Housewife was the thing then. You know, look after the children, do the cooking, do the baking. You know, you didn't open any Captain Birdseye and the other packets. It just wasn't there. You had to cook from the basic ingredients you had, and not all those were available. So Whitechapel biscuits are a very simple, plain biscuit. There is nothing special about them. It takes 3 ingredients. It takes some self-raising flour, it takes sugar, and then you'd use butter, but I've got flour. Now, when my mum used to make these, my nan used to make these many years ago when I was very small, it would have been, with these type of items, but it would have been butter. Anchor butter, been about for years. I used to buy it, my mum used to go to the shop and buy it, and it was slabbed. They used to have 2 like wooden paddles. Goodness, I'm going back. And they used to cut some of the butter off and slab it like that till they got it into a square and then weigh it. And my mum would use butter. But I don't buy butter now, though a lot of people still do like butter. I like to use flour. If I make biscuits now, 9 out of 10 times I will use a soft brown sugar, but then it was all white sugar and white flour, just plain white flour. So there was none of the sort of wheat flours or, you know, especially processed flours or anything like that. That was it, that was your basics. So I'm going to do my best to make those again for you. I've made them a few times since, I've got to be honest, because it does bring back childhood memories. So these are going to be Whitechapel biscuits, and I'm going to show you step by step. Okay, so how do you measure it out? Again, it's all according to how much you're making. But it goes up, it's quite simple, that it goes up in stages, in that if you were to use 900 grams of flour, which is the main thing, you put the flour in first, you would use 600 grams of butter and 300 grams of sugar. So that's how you would spread it down. It's always a third down, so 9, 6, 3. That's the way that I do it. Sometimes I make more, sometimes I make less. So I need a bowl like this. And in there, I'm going to put the flour, self-raising flour. I'm going to put my butter, or flour in my case. Didn't have flour about when I was little. And some sugar. So when those three things are in the bowl, I'm going to mix them by hand. I will do my best to show you mixing them by hand. Let's have a go if I can do that. Okay, so all that's in the bowl. You've got to think here we're talking about history. We're talking about a time when very little was known about calories. Best way to do this is by hand. Very, very little known about calories. Very little known of, as I said, nutritional value. It was just get something in your children's stomach to go to school. So it was all things like this, homemade breads and hodgepodge. Hodgepodge I will make for you next week. That's a lot more healthy than these. Hodgepodge it was called hodgepodge because literally everything was thrown into it, whatever you could get hold of. A lot of root vegetables, and you either made it with ham shanks, if you could get hold of a ham knuckle. You put a couple of those in, boiled them up first. Otherwise you made it with corned beef. Corned beef was a big thing then. It was sort of one of the meats that was easier available. Not so much after the war, but certainly when I was a child, corned beef was quite readily available. So you want to make this into a... Keep going until you've got some breadcrumbs. Now you do that, rub it, look at my hands. Rub it between your fingers. And I'll keep going there until I've got breadcrumbs. Okay, so when you've got it to fine breadcrumbs, you need to add a little bit of water. Now, it's all according, you'll get to know the feel, a little bit of water in. I may need more. This I'll mix with a spoon. Like this. Get all the dry bits from around the edge. So as I say, I'm just doing this to show you where I come from and what sort of things it was like in my childhood times. I'm not doing it as a cook because I can't cook. If you want to see someone bake, either go to Dolores the Baking Diva or Jeanette Pickering or umpteen others that know how to cook. I don't know how to bake. I'm afraid I don't. I can do sort of straightforward things, but okay. So now we've got a consistency like that. Okay, so once we have a consistency like that, I want to flour over my board. And I want to put out the on the thing like that. And then with some flour in a separate bowl. I want to put the flour on top. Very, very similar to pastry, but it's a little bit more, it looks sort of very pappy now. But what you do is you put some on and then you fold and fold. Put some more flour on. And fold. Push the flour in and fold and fold. And you keep going like this It's very sticky, but you keep going until you can form a definite solid, you know, a dough ball. Okay, so when you've got it to the consistency you like, don't forget you can't have it too dry or too moist. That's just sort of getting to know it really, and you know the ladies did this so often. And make it into a long piece like this. This you just do with your hands. I'm using a spatula like that. So I've got a floured baking tray here, and I'm going to cut it, that one off the end, and I'm just going to put that on like that, just on the tray like that. Nothing fancy. These ladies had never heard of French patisseries. And as I said, these are not particularly healthy. They were just made for people to fill their tummies. Don't forget to leave a little bit of space in between because you're going to need the swell. Just rough, very, very rough. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to put these in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes on 180, and I will bring them back and show you. Okay guys, so there we have it, Whitechapel biscuits. When I was a little girl, they'd have been on all the tables lunchtime and supper time, and build your belly and not a lot of vitamins. But people didn't think, like I said, they didn't think about that then. They're very soft. I've broken one open. See, they're very, very, very soft. There goes me size 10. They're lovely. Really, really nice. But not really easy. Really, really simple. The important thing is, if you wanted to make them, is when you take it out of the mixing bowl and you put it on your floured work surface, you need that to be that sticky, and fold the flour in over and over, and fold it in and over, because that's the way you get the cake-like consistency to it. As opposed to a hard biscuit, you get that soft cake-like consistency. So, simple to make. I know something else I was thinking about. When I was weighing this stuff out, I thought about my mum weighing this stuff out, you know. And this is my weigh scales, my Salter. They're Salter, I think. No, they're Russell Hobbs. So they're my weigh scales. My mum had like a contraption, and it had two bowls hanging off of a scale. And then you put it in one side, and however much you wanted, she put little like pounds or ounces or something, and then you weighed the other side, and when it went the same, oh my goodness. And look how far we've come. I was thinking about my mum in the kitchen with that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Just a little bit about my past, and it's been lovely for me because it's made me think about, you know, those things, and never taking anything for granted, and, you know, back in the old days, and it's nice to think of it. It's nice to think of it and be reminded and to share that with you. So I really hope you enjoyed it. I'll try and do hodgepodge for you soon. You take care, and I'll see you in my next video with something I know a little bit more about the baking. Bye!